Which conspiracy theory do you believe is true? Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated by the FBI. Before he even died, he was sent a threatening letter from the FBI that basically said, "Stop doing your doing or we'll expose your cheating to your wife." There had been another man called Raoul that James Earl Ray had met before, who he claimed was deeply involved in the case. He even asserted he didn't personally shoot King but may have been involved in the assassination unknowingly. Heck, even the King family doesn't believe that James Earl Ray killed King. There's still more other info online about this than I want to talk about, but honestly, from the point of view of the FBI at that time, it makes sense to kill King. He was becoming a big influence in the black community, and so to combat that, they could have easily killed him and set someone else up like Ray to take the fall. Throwback Thursday was invented so that social media apps, mainly Facebook, could build and develop facial recognition technology showing the faces of people over time. The original nuclear tests in the U.S. Southwest were done to also test the effects of radiation on human populations. David Kelly didn't kill himself. Now, for those who are too young to remember, shortly after 9/11, the US and the UK decided to invade Iraq. The rationale was that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, WMDs, even though the UN's chief weapons inspector wasn't convinced. A prominent UK weapons expert, one David Kelly, leaked to a journalist that he believed the report alleging WMDs was sexed up in order to give an excuse to go to war, and repeated his claims in front of a parliamentary committee. In so doing, he massively embarrassed the government because he was essentially accusing them of fabricating evidence to give them an excuse to go to a war they'd already decided to fight. 2 days later, Kelly took a huge dose of coproximol and slit his wrist, severing his ulnar artery, on a walk in the woods near his home. Governments spread wild and crazy conspiracy theories to discredit conspiracy theorists and make them look like lunatics. That way, when someone actually finds a real conspiracy, people will just go, "Oh, it's one of those crazy guys." It came to mind that women's makeup is actually secretly damaging their skin, so when they see it, they'd be convinced to buy more makeup. The first NBA draft lottery was rigged to give Patrick Ewing to the Knicks. On the video, the commissioner pulls an envelope out with a clearly bent corner and sighs a huge sigh of relief when he reads what's inside. That Coca-Cola came out with new Coke in order to change the original formula to corn syrup from real sugar without people complaining about the subtle difference. I've always thought that competition reality shows purposefully send someone home each season that deserves to stay, so that people get mad and talk about it online and get other people interested in watching the show. The line on the laundry detergent measuring cup is higher than it needs to be. I had a Vietnamese roommate in college. One time someone mentioned apples and my roommate said he could rip them in half. We all called bullshit, and so he did it to shut us up. It was pretty cool, but then he claimed that all Vietnamese people can do it. That didn't sound right. So now whenever I meet a new Vietnamese person, I ask in as polite and not creepy and not racist a way as I can if they can rip an apple in half. And I'll be damned if every person I've ever asked goes, "Yeah, sure." Also, most of them follow up with, "All Vietnamese people can rip apples in half." Then I always ask if that's just how people in Vietnam eat apples, and they always say no, we just eat them the normal way. But all Vietnamese people can rip them in half if they want to. I truly don't know if I'm being trolled or not. If I ask the question and have an apple, I'll always give it to the person who claims they can do this. And they always can. So there's some truth to it, but I cannot figure out why. In my experience, almost all Vietnamese people claim that all Vietnamese people can rip apples in half. That's a weird thing to claim. How are they so sure about what every other Vietnamese person can do? Are they implying that Laotians and Thai people can't do this? Is it a special trick they teach only in Vietnam? I would never claim that all Americans can juggle or that all white people can juggle. See, I don't even know if they're suggesting it's a racial trait, or a cultural skill, or is it that Vietnamese people are just really proud of their culture, so they like to fib about the skills everyone else has. And then when tested with an apple, all Vietnamese people are just so confident that they're awesome enough to do it that they just brute force the apple in half. Or was there a meeting once, and all Vietnamese people realized that they could help each other by making wild fruit claims about the skills of the Vietnamese so that they could trick dumb white boys like me into giving them free fruit to test their powers, I would welcome any data anyone else can offer on this. My sample size is admittedly small, about 8 Vietnamese people, so this could just be a statistical fluke. But when 6 people, who have almost certainly never met each other before, independently claim that all Vietnamese people have fruit powers, it makes you wonder whether it might just be true. Follow-up notes. 1. Yes. I understand that plenty of non-Vietnamese folks can rip an apple in half. Hell, I can do it too. That doesn't make the Vietnamese fruit claims that I've experienced less peculiar. 2. Yes. I know that British comedian Bob Mortimer can do this. 3. By my rough estimate from past comments in previous threads, for every Vietnamese person claiming that they've never heard of this, there's another Vietnamese person claiming that all Vietnamese people can rip apples, and yet another non-Vietnamese person who asks a coworker or an in-law or a friend and learns that they can rip apples. Of that last group, it seems like about half of the Vietnamese people ask Dad, oh yeah, all Vietnamese people can do that. 4. Let me address all Vietnamese people for a second. If a bunch of people give you free apples to test this, and you like apples, enjoy. If you get a bunch of annoying fruit inquiries that you don't want to deal with, I'm sorry, but really, is it my fault for accurately reporting my experiences with Vietnamese folks? Apple ripping, and Vietnamese folks' claims about apple ripping, or should you really be annoyed at all of my past Vietnamese acquaintances who have made these claims? Anyway, at least hopefully this is more fun for you to talk about than the war. I am Vietnamese, and all people can do this because it was like a mini trend in high school. Paul Pierce pooped his pants in an NBA game and pretended he hurt his ankle to get a wheelchair off court. He already admitted he shit his pants. Michael Jordan's 2-year stint in baseball was actually a 2-year NBA ban for gambling on games. I feel like the round earth theory is true. Pedophile rings in high places of power: government, Hollywood, church. The phrase conspiracy theory has been purposefully warped to mean something farcical and crazy to discredit people who call out criminal conspiracies. There's no way I'll ever believe that Pat Tillman's death was accidental friendly fire. That hot dog manufacturers have a secret agreement with the bun companies to produce different amounts of each product. I don't know the numbers exactly, but for example, you need dogs for a cookout, so you buy some, and the only available package size is 8 hot dogs. Then, you go and get some buns which only come in packs of 12. Therefore, once you cook your 8 hot dogs, you still have leftover buns, which means you will buy more hot dogs to use those buns, and you will then have to buy more buns to use those hot dogs that were bought to finish the original buns. The cycle continues. That Corey Feldman is right, and there is a casting couch for kids in Hollywood to get roles, and parents are too blinded by the thought of stardom that they turned a blind eye in the past. I really hope it isn't true, but that Harvey Weinstein and the movie Bombshell make me fearful that scum is everywhere in that town. I genuinely think the FBI and the Kennedys had Marilyn Monroe killed. I think they have cloned humans. Exhibit A, Gucci Mane. Exhibit B, Gucci backup. That most if not all countries have done experiments on humans against their will. All the novels written by Dean Koontz are in fact written by a golden retriever. The man in all of the author pictures was hired because no one would take a dog novelist seriously. Based on shit I've seen in here, monopolies at least in the US are only illegal on paper, and the ones you hear about getting stopped likely pissed someone off. Sony had Michael Jackson killed so that they could secure the rights to the Beatles' discography. I read one about MJ being killed because he was the one who wanted to expose all the elite pedophiles in Hollywood, and his ranch with the kids was actually a sanctuary for victims. He was framed as a pedo himself to tarnish his reputation, and no one would believe anything he said.